Me now is Professor Anand Menon, Director of the UK in a Changing Europe think tank. It provides research on Brexit and its consequences. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. What, first of all, then, is your response to what Leo Varadkar has said, not least the fact that he's acknowledging mistakes were made, which I think might be the first time someone said that about this?
Well, I don't think it's the first time people have said it about Brexit and the way Brexit was handled. I mean, it was a new thing for both sides. I think what's encouraging about what Leo Varadkar said is the mood music from both sides, both from London and from the EU and indeed Dublin, is very, very positive at the moment, which smacks of the fact that I think both sides really want to try and find space to get an agreement if they can. The devil, however, as so often with these Brexit-related issues, is going to be in the detail, that as much goodwill as there are real substantive differences still that separate the two sides.
He puts it in a nutshell, saying there are a lot of people who are unionists who feel the protocol has separated them from Great Britain, and nationalists in Northern Ireland who feel it's separated them from the rest of Ireland. So what is the solution to that?
Well, this is the thorny issue, is that ultimately there has to be a border somewhere. Both sides agree that border can't be on the island of Ireland between north and south. So the deal we have at the moment implies some kind of customs and regulatory border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And I think the trick here is, from what Leo Varadkar was saying, is whether the EU can find the flexibility to make that border as unintrusive as possible. I don't think you can't get away without having a border. The EU won't allow its single market simply to be open. It'll want things coming into that market to be checked. But the question is, how flexible can they be when it comes to those checks in allowing things to move as smoothly as possible and therefore hopefully assuage unionist concerns?
And how ready do you think all sides are to agree to something that could work? Because April is going to be the anniversary, the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Peace Agreement, and it said that there's some hope and expectation that there may be agreement in place by then to enable then the power-sharing institutions of Northern Ireland to be back up and running by then.
Absolutely, there's that. But there's also, of course, the prospect of a visit by President Biden to Ireland, and neither side wants to be seen as responsible for that not happening. So there is a very big carrot there, which is the prospect of getting something done by that anniversary. The problem is partly what we were talking about before, which is to say the issue of whether the EU can be flexible on checks. But on the UK side, when Lord Frost was in government, he insisted that the protocol needed to be fundamentally rewritten, not least to remove the role of the European Court from it. Now there, I think, the UK government is going to have to show some flexibility. And that will depend partly on what the Prime Minister thinks and whether he's willing to be flexible to get a deal, and partly on whether he has the political strength to push that kind of deal through in the face of what I'm sure will be opposition from the more hardline Brexit factions of his political party. So there's a lot of politics involved in trying to get a deal over the line, I think.
And in terms of the politics, I mean, back to Leo Varadkar saying that mistakes were made on all sides. You know, obviously there was criticism when there was the attempt to unpick what had been agreed, because it was like, well, this was agreed. It was a sort of hard-fought, hard-won deal. What lessons do you think can be learned? Because it's not like it was something that was done overnight. It was something that was extremely difficult, and it took place over a long period of negotiating something that seemed pretty intractable.
Well, I think one lesson is that both sides need to think carefully about the implications of deals they're signing up to. As you said, this is the deal on the table. It is a deal that has always implied the need for some kind of regulatory border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. I think some politicians on this side were misleading in how they presented that, giving the impression that there'd be no need for such checks. But I think, you know, going forward, a deal of honesty from both sides and a bit of flexibility on both sides is going to be crucial if we're going to solve this problem. And of course, if we don't solve this problem and we end up with a continued standoff, then our relationship with the European Union is going to continue to be frozen.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Anand Menon.
Pleasure. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. UK in a Changing Europe.